Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com for non-boxing picks. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Let me just say, right now, in the entire world of sports, one of the most compelling stories, folks, this is real-life drama, is taking place right now in the heavyweight division, right? No question about it. You had a longtime champion, Vladimir Klitschko, right? In fact, you had two guys, Vitaly Klitschko and Vladimir Klitschko, real champions, right? Vitaly Klitschko leaves to go into politics to get on with the rest of his life, right? Boxing was great to him, but hey, there's more to life, and he's in his 40s. Vladimir Klitschko loses to Tyson Fury. They're about to have a rematch. Quite frankly, I think the young lion is simply too good for the old master, right? But keep in mind, there are other parts of the belt. This is boxing. So somehow, by fighting Vladimir Klitschko, Tyson Fury lost his right to defend the share of the belt that they had up for grabs in the Charles Martin-Czar Glazkov fight. Right? And of course, there was the remaining belt from Vitaly Klitschko's reign, right? The two Klitschko brothers weren't going to fight each other. Good for them. What that meant was a splintered heavyweight title. So, of course, Deontay Wilder, who is unbeaten, who has only been forced to go the distance once. Everything else is by KO. Right? He's a heavyweight champion, and he put his belt on the line against Artur Szpilka. Understand, too, you have new venues involved. The Barclays Center in Brooklyn, right? They're now in the boxing business. Across town, Madison Square Garden used to be called the Mecca of boxing. Maybe it still is. But Barclays is conceding nothing. So Barclays Center, of course, had two heavyweight championship fights. And someone involved in the promotion was smart enough to figure out that if you're going to have heavyweight championship fights, you might as well have some great heavyweights in the building. So they brought in Mike Tyson. They brought in Lennox Lewis, right? Tyson Fury wisely decided that he needed to be in attendance. After all, it's his division. So you had high drama. I'm telling you, that drama is ongoing. Let me say this. Let me congratulate everyone involved. Kudos to the heavyweight division. I thought after the fight, when Tyson Fury hopped in the ring and confronted Deontay Wilder, I thought that was good stuff. That's the kind of stuff that belongs in a movie, right? And I'll give Wilder credit. Rather than just, insult the other champion and have a pushing and shoving match, right? Wilder told him to his face, hey, man, you're a phony. I'll fight you. Both guys said, I'll fight you, right? Let's just say this viewer who wants to see fights between champions, right? Who believes that there's the heavyweight division and then there's everything else, was riveted. I thought it was great stuff. But now let's talk about the part that wasn't great, right? I am positive. I just don't know how either Lennox Lewis or Mike Tyson had a good night's sleep after watching these guys fight, right? I know Tyson must have been sleeping, and if he had a dream that night, he must have just seen Deontay Wilder's body right there in front of him. Wide open. Tyson must be thinking, man, I wish I were 21 years old today. Right? It would have just been too easy. I know Tyson was looking at Artur Szpilka inexplicably not take that extra step inside. And Tyson must be thinking, you got to be kidding. I know on camera, the promoter is giving them a ticket. I know the guys are diplomatic. They love the sport. They want to support young fighters. They were young fighters at one time. But there is absolutely no way a Mike Tyson or a Lennox Lewis watched these fights and didn't believe that the heavyweight division has gone downhill since when they ruled the roost. Right? First, let me define the terms here. Let's talk about taking that extra step. You know what I'm talking about. You're coming inside. You know those guys who come inside so far, right, that they'll put a shoulder on you. Right? They'll get so close to you that you're like this piece of paper. They're up on you. They're inside. They're inside of your hands. You want to see a great Mike Tyson fight where he just destroys a guy, gets inside, it's over. Look at Mike Tyson against Marvis Frazier. Right? Tyson's not hanging around, you know. When he gets inside, he doesn't just suddenly stop and say, hey, I'm not going to take that extra step. I'm not going to get up close and rip up his ribs and, you know, do the business. You know, get up close, then throw uppercuts, smother him. Right? Unfortunately, that was Artur Szpilka. Right? I know Lennox Lewis, too, was looking at this fight, and he's looking at Deontay Wilder. I know he knows Szpilka's a southpaw, but I'm sure a guy with a great jab like Lennox Lewis must have been looking at Deontay Wilder and saying, wow, can't you land more jabs than that? Is Szpilka that elusive? I'm sure Lewis was looking at him thinking, my God, I would have jabbed this guy to death. Right? I'm guessing the champions were shaken watching this. Right? If they sat together, I wouldn't have been surprised if Tyson would have turned to Lewis and said, hey, is this the undercard or are these the championship fights? Right? Let's just say, I know Al Heyman has some of these big heavyweights, right? Deontay Wilder, for example, right? Okay, fair enough. I'm just here to tell you the best heavyweight that Al Heyman might have today might be Antonio Tarver. I got to tell you, you want to see riveting stuff, and this was just riveting across the board. I want people to look at Tony Bellew's face after the Charles Martin-Czar Glazkov fight. Understand, Tony Bellew fought Artur Szpilka, right, years ago, and beat Artur Szpilka as an amateur in 2006. And I'm just telling you, Tony Bellew was trying to be diplomatic, right? He's on television. He's trying to be diplomatic on the British broadcast. And he just had to shake his head. He was, you know, he actually said apologetically, you know, hey, you know, I'm accustomed to seeing great heavyweights. Somebody on the telecast mentioned Riddick Bowe, a great heavyweight, right? And Tony just nodded his head. You understood what Tony was saying was he wasn't seeing great heavyweights here. And understand, folks, he had just watched, supposedly, a heavyweight title fight. Right? Johnny Nelson on the telecast. Former cruiserweight champion. Right? Long-reigning cruiserweight champion. Look up Johnny Nelson's record. Right? Johnny Nelson tried to be diplomatic. These guys were in a rough spot. Johnny Nelson diplomatically said, you know, Deontay Wilder's style is a young man's style. I'm just telling you that was a diplomatic way of saying, you know, Deontay Wilder, he's not an old master. Folks, this is a heavyweight champion who's made multiple defenses of the title. If you really want to crack yourself up, look at the British feed. They have a future Hall of Famer, Carl Froch, describing the fight. Now, Froch is trying desperately to make it look interesting, right? To be complimentary. So Froch is trying to compliment Charles Martin. Folks, let's just say that was one of the biggest challenges of the night. Now, I know everyone's unbeaten today, right? Charles Martin's unbeaten. Deontay Wilder's unbeaten. Okay, great. Those guys have shares of the heavyweight title. All right. Let's first talk about the Charles Martin fight. Charles Martin looks slow to me. I mean slow. He looks slow to me, right? Charles Martin is flat-footed and can't move. Right? To say that I was not impressed, I didn't know much about the guy before the fight. I said, hey, maybe this is some energetic new heavyweight. We all want to discover some energetic new fighter. We can say, oh my goodness, this guy's going to breathe a lot of life into the sport. Folks, today I don't feel that that's Charles Martin. Right? He looks slow. I don't know, man. I didn't see it at all. He stands upright. Right? I wonder whether Charles Martin could beat Lennox Lewis today. And Lewis hasn't been in the ring for over a decade and a half. Right? I mean, I just didn't see the skill set. Let's talk about Glazkov. You're fighting a guy who's a potted plant. Right? Charles Martin's not going to be confused anytime soon with Malik Scott, who moved a lot and gave Glazkov problems. Right? So you're fighting a guy who's literally just right there. And Glazkov hardly moved around the ring. I didn't know what he was doing. This is a guy who won an Olympic medal. I was watching the fight. I was bewildered. Let's talk about the ending of the fight. Folks, I hope no one watching this video thinks the ending was caused by Charles Martin. No, Glazkov's knee just blows up. This is like Adelaide Solis at the end of the Vitaly Klitschko fight. And in that fight, Vitaly did more than Charles Martin did. Right? Now, I agree. Look, if you're fighting a guy and the guy's knee blows up and he can't continue, okay, you win the fight. I'll agree with that. But someone's going to have to tell me, how was this a title fight? Right? Okay, you're going to strip Tyson Fury. I understand Glazkov was the mandatory contender. You're telling me that these two guys, that Charles Martin was supposed to somehow have earned this over the other guys in the heavyweight division? There is simply no way. And I hope the boxing journalists, the people actually out there doing things other than what I'm doing, making YouTube videos, the people actually interviewing boxing superstars, right? I hope the boxing press actually tries to pin down Mike Tyson. And as he tries to give diplomatic answers supportive of young fighters and the promoter, I hope they say to him, hey man, do you think that Charles Martin on his best day would have lasted 5 rounds with you? Right? Because I'm sure Tyson and Lewis are privately thinking, my goodness, you give me 6 months to train, there's no way this guy would be able to beat me. Let me say this too. And I'm serious when I say this. I'm not trying to be funny here. Right? This isn't a comedy channel. I'm dead serious. These guys look so bad to me that, quite frankly, there are a host of guys who right now must be thinking, you know what? I was going to retire. I was riding off into the sunset, but now I realize I have a shot at the title. Right? There are a host of guys who I'm sure, even in other divisions, were thinking, hey, I was happy at cruiser, but wow, this guy can't beat me. Tony Bellew has to be thinking about fighting Charles Martin. Has to be. The older skilled guys out there, the guys with skills, the guys who've been in the game, right? Guillermo Jones has to be thinking about fighting Charles Martin. Antonio Tarver has to be thinking about fighting Charles Martin. David Haye. Now look, I'm not convinced by 1-round knockouts. I'm not going to see a guy blow out a guy in 1 round and say he's all the way back. But my goodness, I thought Anthony Joshua was immobile. Then I saw Charles Martin. Anthony Joshua is practically Usain Bolt compared to Charles Martin. Right? David Haye has to be thinking, my goodness, if I get in the ring with this guy, he won't be able to find me. I'll be too fast. I just don't have to stand in front of him. I'll be able to land my shots. Even Adlanir Solis, the original guy who blew out his knee, has to be thinking, if I get inside, forget Charles Martin, if I get inside on Deontay Wilder, that fight would be over. Right? So I'll say, let's talk the Wilder fight. Now, I don't understand the scorecards. I really don't. All of them had Wilder winning the fight. I'll tell you what, I thought Szpilka was in this fight. You're going to have to tell me the part of this fight before the knockout. Right? You have to tell me the part of this fight where Szpilka looked like he was getting methodically deconstructed. I didn't see it. Right? Wilder couldn't land his jab. Can we agree on that? Right? Couldn't land his jab. Just look. If you believe he's landing his jab, and I know in the pre-fight comments to the pre-fight video, guys were saying, oh, you're overstating the holes in Wilder's game. Right? Wilder is a complete fighter. He hits guys with two hands and stuff like that. Can we agree that Artur Szpilka is not defensively blessed, but yet he took away Wilder's left jab? Can we agree on that? Wilder can't land his jab, folks. I was hearing about a Wilder left hook. I've seen him throw left hooks from time to time. He couldn't land his left hook in this fight. No one watching this video is going to confuse Artur Szpilka with Pernell Whitaker or Floyd Mayweather defensively. Right? Szpilka wasn't in there going, dodging shots and stuff. Right? Wilder was low volume because Szpilka understood all Wilder had that was A-game level was the long right hand. And Szpilka's moving around the ring. Let me tell you, Szpilka at times made Wilder look extremely limited. Early in the fight, Szpilka actually was even lingering around the ropes. You were watching him in the corner and you were saying, my God, he's in the corner. He gets hit with some Wilder shots. Because they're not long right hands, he takes them. I believe it's because he was having too much success that in the 9th round, inexplicably, against a guy with only a right hand, it's Szpilka who walks into the right hand. Think about it. Right? What's he doing on that side? Right, so I know many of you are going to look at the KO. I know it's dramatic. Look, I'm the first person to concede that Wilder has one-punch knockout power in that right hand. No question about it. Right? If he hits you with the right hand, he can take you out. I'm just here to tell you, though, that at this high level, certainly southpaws like Tarver, Jones, would give him problems. I know many people are going to say, come on, man, Tarver's in his 40s. Right? What would, Tarver in his mid-30s would beat Tarver today. That's fine. Tarver in his mid-30s would destroy Deontay Wilder. Understand that. Tarver in his 40s, at least Wilder has the advantage of youth. Right? As Johnny Nelson puts it politically, diplomatically, he has a young man's game. Right? But understand, when you're throwing long right hands, and his right hand, as I said, it's long, you leave yourself open for counters. You leave yourself open to opponents who are going to use spacing and not give you a chance to throw that right hand. When your jab's the kind of jab where an Artur Szpilka is able to take it away from you. Right? I mean, listen to the pre-fight video. I thought he'd take it away from him. He did. When did you ever see anyone take away Lennox Lewis's jab to that extent? Right? Wilder's an athlete. He's tall, he's lanky, he moves around the ring. Why couldn't he set it up so he could turn and land that punch? Folks, it's because he doesn't have that sense of balance. So my point to you is, you have a bunch of guys who, if there were a dominant, unbeatable champion, right, would say, you know what, I'm in my 40s, I've made my money, I've taken enough punches, I'm going to get on with the rest of my life. I have kids, I have a family, boxing was good to me, but it's a young man's game. You don't have that now. Right? You have a situation where you do have one dominant champion, right? I think Tyson Fury really is special, right? I think there's a reason why David Haye, is talking about Anthony Joshua. Then when interviewers say, "Hey, what about Tyson Fury? Don't you want the belt?" David Haye, who earlier had agreed to fight Tyson Fury, now says, "You know what? 2060, no, I'm not going to fight him," because folks understand Tyson Fury's the real deal. But I believe they also understand that unbeaten Charles Martin and unbeaten Deontay Wilder, as dramatic as their KOs look, and they look dramatic, right? Szpilka gets hit. Wilder is so certain of his power that he immediately starts to walk away. Look at him walk away from Szpilka after he's hit. According to reports, Wilder looks at his corner and says, "Out cold." Right? That's the level of power. Unfortunately, there isn't, in my opinion, the rest of the game to make him a great heavyweight. In other words, you have a heavyweight champ who's 30, who's still learning the game, who doesn't have the skill level of guys like Antonio Tarver. Look, I'm sure Tarver, Guillermo Jones, these guys aren't going to come in with the low body fat that Deontay Wilder has, right? These guys are going to be shorter than Deontay Wilder, right? Deontay Wilder's a tall 6'7", right? Okay, right? I know the visual's not going to look good. I know on paper many people are going to say, "Oh man, this dude's in his 40s." Wilder's unbeaten. He's 30 years old. He's the champ. What are these old guys doing against this guy? Right? I'm just telling you. These old guys know they have the skills. There's going to be a skill gap if they fight Wilder. Right? I'm guessing Lennox Lewis, if there's a shot of a camera on Lennox Lewis during the fight, I'm sure Lennox Lewis at times is closing his eyes. Right? Because I'm sure the great fighters are looking at this and they have to be thinking, man, this guy is green. So for me, it's compelling. I think there's one real heavyweight champion. His name is Tyson Fury. Right? Then I think there's everyone else. In fact, let me couch that. There's another guy who's championship level, right? Vladimir Klitschko, the old master who's been, who was champ for several years, right? They're those two guys. In fact, I'll throw in another guy, and he was president at Barclays Center. I think Alexander Povetkin is real. He's legit, right? I'm telling you, I can't imagine Deontay Wilder or Charles Martin giving Alexander Povetkin a shot at the title anytime soon, right? If that fight's announced on a Monday, I'm telling you, I'll be placing action on Povetkin that day, right? Those guys are, we'll call it the legitimate part of the heavyweight division, right? Those guys aren't green. Those guys are championship level. Right? You hear their names, They say, oh, who's this guy fighting? And they say, oh, he's fighting Tyson Fury. He's fighting Vladimir Klitschko or Alexander Povetkin. Then you have to say, oh man, that's a tough fight. But if you're hearing Charles Martin, look, man, I don't care what they want to call the belt he has. If they say Charles Martin, if they say Deontay Wilder, you have to realize the belt's in play. These are uncertain times. We have multiple heavyweight belts that are at severe risk, right? I told people I thought this Szpilka fight was going to be competitive. Now, I don't know what fight the judges were watching. That fight was competitive up until the last punch. Think about it. That fight was competitive up until the last punch. Right? It was competitive for a reason, folks. Let's look at Deontay Wilder's history here. The Eric Molina fight, I'm telling you, Molina came this close to lifting the title. The Szpilka fight, I'm telling you, Szpilka, who normally is dishing out punishment. In my opinion, he neutralized Deontay Wilder's jab. Call me a skeptic. I was very impressed by the boxing show. Any show that brings together that many heavyweights, right? Tyson Fury and, Povetkin are present with Lennox Lewis, with Mike Tyson. Hey, look, bravo to the promotion. I personally wasn't that impressed with the boxing, right? If Artur Szpilka had more of an inside game, I believe his fight against Wilder would have been lopsided, right? I'm guessing there's a possibility that Lewis or Tyson called up some of their people who had to say to them, nah, look, Lennox, you're retired. Let's not go down this road of a comeback and stuff like that, because I know those great fighters had to be looking at the action and had to realize, wow, if this is the top of the heavyweight division today, I have a shot. Anyway, that's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I know there's a group of you who feel that I'm too hard on Wilder, right? We haven't talked about Charles Martin. Now that we've all seen him, let me know your thoughts on him, right? I thought he was delusional. That's the only word I could use. In the post-fight interview where he was talking about how, his punches somehow contributed to the Glazkov knee injury. I thought Glazkov fought a pure fight. You're fighting a guy who can't move. Why not stick and move yourself? Why would this guy ever be able to time you with left-hand counters, which he did do on occasion, right? Okay, fine, right? But let's just say, wow, you're telling me that Charles Martin is a heavyweight champion? Come on. Come on. Also, you're telling me that Deontay Wilder has a developed game? Come on. Is anyone watching this video surprised that the fight ended on a right hand? Come on. Well, anyway, that's how I see it. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Thanks for stopping by.